𝗀̱ance World's Toughest Rodeo, January 10th and 11th at Wells Fargo Arena. It's rodeo and a whole lot more. Come early for autographs, pony rides, and more. See more action, the best entertainment, and be part of the fun. It's too great to wait. Get tickets now at HiVTix.com. It's wild, it's western, it's pro rodeo at the 𝗀̱ance World's Toughest Rodeo, January 10th and 11th.
Two guys, two Chris's, one network. Iowa everywhere. It's time for Two Guys with Chris Williams and Chris Hassel. Presented by Fareway Meat and Grocery from the Channel Seed Studios. Where? Everywhere. Live and always on demand at Iowa Everywhere.
Good morning, championship edition of Two Guys here on Iowa Everywhere. My name is Chris Williams. I am joined by Chris Hassel, Matt Van Winkle producing today's program, where we are presented by our friends at Fareway Meat and Grocery. We are in the Channel Seed Studios. So much to get to today. All of our championship games for college football. Iowa State with a top 5 basketball win last night. Iowa got a Big Ten basketball win earlier this week.
Buzzer beater.
Buzzer beater.
Beater.
Iconic shot there by Josh Dix. We've got Iowa quarterback, transfer portal stuff, and, of course, Iowa State playing for the Big 12 championship 2 days from now. How are you today, Chris?
I'm doing good. Got some nice sleep. Stayed up. Watched the...
you look really refreshed.
PN or what have you. I guarantee you that thing starts at like, what, 8:30 Central Time?
And at least we had, like, Rich Hollenberg, he had a big voice name on it, and, the legend King McClure.
Yeah, I mean, it was
King last night.
He was good. He's gotten a lot better.
He really has. And he knows what he's talking about. Shit, he even knew. I was surprised. He knew he knew about Matt Campbell. He knew about Bill Fennelly.
King,
he can relate with these guys, yeah.
His first year was that COVID year where Prohm went 0-19 in the league. So, like, we all have such a bad, first impressions are everything. And that King McClure, that he did, like, every game that year. So Iowa State fans just hate his guts because of that. But anyways, no, it was a good atmosphere, good win. They, they're just really good.
Getting a lot of comments that we're buffering badly. It's choppy. We're going in and out. I don't know. It seems fine from our perspective. Van Winks, you're the producer. What the hell's going on?
I don't know. I'll dig into it. I'm sorry if we're having issues.
Well, we really shouldn't be.
Everything looks totally fine.
Yeah, if we were having issues, I think we would be noticing it as well.
If you're having issues on YouTube, switch over to Facebook or Twitter.
Scranton says it's fine on X. So if you're on YouTube and you can hear me, switch over to X for now or restart.
It's probably a YouTube problem. Would be the guess.
It's not an us problem. I want to blame Van Woke as much as anybody, but everything's good on our end, and it's cleared up. So where do you want to start today?
It's a lot like King McClure. It's gotten a lot better.
Because, I mean, sure, we've got 90 minutes here, so we've got all kinds of time.
We got Wild Rose Casino overtime. Thanks to them.
Obviously, we're going to spend more time talking about the Big 12 championship game and the college football playoff and all that.
I think we start with that basketball game last night.
I do too.
Yeah,
I do too. It was I did a really weird thing. I was watching the JonBenet Ramsey doc on Netflix, and I just couldn't turn it off. I just couldn't. I had to start the second episode.
She was the little girl who was murdered, right?
Yes, back in '96.
Yeah. All right. A lot of these kids, Chris, that are watching, they don't even know what that is.
I know. But
Aiden
if you don't know what it is, well, even us. I mean, we were still pretty young. I mean, in 6th grade, like some of the details we had kind of forgotten about. Anyway, I actually started watching the game in the second half, and it was, Iowa State's up double figures. I get to the under 12 timeout, and I'm like, God damn it. I need to know what happened in the first half. Well, it's ESPN Plus. Easily scroll that sucker back. I watched the whole first half in like 10 minutes and then caught right back up. And by the under 4 timeout, I was back on it. God, just a really good performance by Iowa State. This was as intently as I've watched Iowa State this season. I didn't watch this closely when they played Auburn and Dayton and in Maui. I'm just really impressed with the different, just the different levels that they have.
Yes.
I mean, sure, you've got what you've had the last couple of years, but you add the 2 big guys. What are we calling them now? The presidents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jefferson and Jackson.
Those guys, they are men.
Mm-hmm.
They are dudes.
They're so much better than the guys they've had.
They're old. They're skilled. And then you have 𝗙ście𝗰𝗵𝗏, who I think is playing as good as anybody in the country right now. Every time I turn Iowa State on, he is the best player on the floor for either team. Playing through a big knock to the nose, blood all over the place. The guy can shoot. The guy can create his own shot. He can get to the rim and finish. And then you've got these just nice pieces like Nate 𝗀𝗙ście, who all of a sudden you put him on one of the best players in the country, and he basically shuts him down after that Marquette run.
Yeah,
I was really impressed.
That maybe saved the game for Iowa State. Was Nate
huge, because I was, when that happened, it was like carbon copy of that Auburn game. So is this going to be a problem for Iowa State all season? Having these great starts and not closing out. 𝗙ście calls that timeout, and then immediately a 7-0 run, and Marquette never got any closer.
And one of your best players in Taman 𝗙𝗪cy scores 1 point.
Yeah.
Played really good defense, but you're getting it from other places.
He's
which you
playing
really
defense, but
he doesn't have to do it
𝗙𝗪cy, I don't even know if he's a top 5 player on Iowa State's team right now.
Well,
he's banged up.
I would argue that he is, just because of his defense and the
he's
leadership.
glue, he's defense, but he's clearly banged up. And again, the broadcast crew mentioned the injury. They said the Iowa State staff was talking about the injury.
I wonder how much he'll play. Like they have Jackson State on Sunday. Like I just wonder if it's time to rest him for a little bit. Of course, he'll play against Iowa next week. I would make the argument on 𝗙𝗪cy. It's like I think he had to do more scoring-wise the first 2 years of his career than he does now.
That's a great point.
So much talent. I don't think he was ever supposed to be that guy.
But he just had to be, and now he doesn't need to be. And Iowa State still scores 81 points against Marquette, a really good defensive team. That's Shaka Smart, the Havoc. That goes back to his VCU days, his Havoc defense, and they didn't need it.
Okay, so we had the same takeaway on the bigs. Like, that was my takeaway the first game I saw this year when they played Mississippi freaking Valley State. It was just
you were rock hard. Your boner was so long it almost stretched across the baseline onto the playing floor.
They're massive. I'll just say they're so much better than the guys that they've had in these previous 𝗙𝗪ce teams. I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
It's not even close.
It's totally different. The other thing, and you mentioned 𝗀𝗙𝗪cy, and we've seen this a couple times now, like they just have matchup options. And TJ told me this when we did our preseason podcast for Cyclone Fanatic. If anybody listened to that, like he was really trying to set the expectation for the fan base is that like just because one guy plays a lot one game doesn't mean he will every game, right? Like what they did last night, 𝗀𝗪𝗆𝗏 only played 17 minutes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, he's the best pro prospect on the team. He only played 17 minutes because at that point they needed defense, and they go to 𝗀𝗙𝗪cy, and it created a huge matchup problem for Marquette. So I love the matchup versatility that they have with this team. That the other thing that just stands out to me so much. I texted my nieces and nephew during the game. They're all high school basketball players, and I was like, "You guys need to watch like just how hard this team plays." It hasn't dropped off. Usually, you can get like average to bad players to play really hard because they need to make up for the talent that they don't have.
Mm-hmm.
This team is, I mean, top 10 in the country with talent, right? Or just like the way it's built. I don't know about pure talent, but just the way it's built. And they're still playing like those first and second year TJ teams.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago they had to play hard because they had no offense. I mean, they had to hold teams to 50 points to win games. Now Marquette scores 70 points and you still easily beat them. And the lasting impression from this game, and I was like, I couldn't believe it when I was watching the end of it. The buzzer sounds and Iowa State fans just clap, turn around, and walk to the exits.
Yeah.
They just beat a top 5 team, an unbeaten top 5 team in a marquee game on their home floor, and it was like any other win.
Yeah.
Not just no court storm, but like no nothing.
Felt like that the whole night, too. It's like they were into it. It was a really good atmosphere. Their whiteout looked really cool. But it wasn't like, when Kansas is there and the crowd's just on, like, a little bit spoiled in a good way. To just go in there and expect to win that game the way that Iowa State did. They covered. And they won by double digits, which is huge for metrics and all that stuff down the road. So it was I'm really impressed. I thought they would be good. I think they're probably better than I thought they were going to be. And it sets up next week, a week from today, in Carver Hawkeye Arena.
And you got Van Winks over here in the private chat saying, meanwhile, Iowa storms the court after beating Northwestern. I got to get this off my chest because there's a lot of Iowa State fans like, oh, what are you doing storming the court? It's a last-second 29-foot three to win the game by 1. That is why the court was stormed, not because of who they beat. It was a last-second shot. I don't care who it's against. When you hit a shot like that, you storm the court. And yeah, there weren't that many people there, but they were engaged. Like, I was really surprised how loud it was in Carver. It really translated on the cock, on Peacock. And there were actual students there. Like, there might have only been 50 of them, but they were there. I did not think that they would be there. This was not the Iowa early December game of seasons past.
They crossed the bridge.
Some of them did. I don't know what Beth Getz did to get that atmosphere better. Like, there weren't more fans in the stands. The atmosphere was just better. And I was totally fine with them storming the court. I didn't think anything of it because of how great the shot was.
Redline says
it doesn't matter that it's Northwestern.
I want to pull this quote. This is great. Redline says, lame. People who storm the court after beating Northwestern are the same folks who DoorDash from Outback.
That's true.
I think I saw this on Twitter yesterday. Do you know the last time Iowa State fans stormed the court?
Last year against Kansas.
Kansas last year.
Was it?
Yeah, you idiot.
Yeah,
what were you
I was
going to
there.
say?
Oh, I thought someone said it was like 2015.
Yeah,
No,
that's not true.
That's not true. There's
fake news.
Oh,
I was doing
sorry.
post game last year, and it turned into this whole deal because the fans were just storming the court behind me. Yeah, fun night for sure. Let's move on to football.
Hang on. What's that line going to be next week at Carver?
Hold on. Let me pull up KenPom and see what he has. He has Iowa State by 5.
Iowa State by 5. That's it. Wow. So Marquette was more of an underdog at Iowa State than Iowa State will be at Iowa. And Ryan says announced attendance at Carver was 7.6 thousand. Half full. Hassel said the atmosphere was better than expected. Do you guys understand like where I'm coming from? Like, it's all relative with the Iowa basketball program and how the apathy has been and how bad the vibes are over there. And sometimes even when there are fans there, the atmosphere isn't great. And I think Beth Getz has done a few things to try to change that. And I noticed a difference in the atmosphere despite the fact that there were only 7,500 people there.
I would also make the point, there's a lot of Iowa State fans who are not expecting that to be a game next week. Don't fall into that trap. This series has been so lopsided based on where it has been. I do think this Iowa State team is different. It's built different. They should be a favorite over Iowa, even on Iowa's home court. But God, like, this series is so indicative on where it's played. I'm not comfortable going over there.
And as we've said, we both believe Iowa is going to be an NCAA tournament team.
Yes.
So you're playing a potential tournament team on the road in a rivalry game.
Yeah, and Fran wants
and
that
one team
back.
has nothing to lose. Iowa doesn't really have anything to lose against Iowa State. No one's going to expect them to win that game.
Yeah, you just look at the pure matchup between the two teams. Iowa State's better. Like there's so much
a lot
more.
Better.
Yeah, so much more goes into it than that. All right, two guys, Chris and Chris. We are presented by our friends at Full Court Press, the Full Court Press family of restaurants. Get out there this weekend. Go watch a championship game at the Iowa Tap Room. That's what I would suggest. Great food. They got all those beers on tap. That awesome souk-up grain bin right there in the middle of it. Hell, you can get some beers, and then you can pick up a pizza at Fong's Pizza for the way home. There you go. Full Court Press. We appreciate them sponsoring two guys here with Chris and Chris on Iowa Everywhere. Also, our friends at Freedom Tire. It is below 0 out, the feels like temperature right now. Do you know how much it would suck to get a fucking flat tire right now? Yes.
Oof.
It's
is
like
there
11...
snow on the ground over there?
No, but it kind of is. Like, there was snow on Monday, and then it a little bit melted. It's you know how that goes. It's one of those tweener. But the wind, it's so freaking windy. Like, the wind chill is just awful out there. So get to your oil change. Make sure your cars, your trucks, your vans ready to go for the winter months with our friends at Freedom Tire. They have locations all across the Des Moines Metro. Also one up in Ames. Big 12 championship game coming up. It's Thursday now. On Saturday, 11 o'clock. There's a lot that has happened since we last met. Arizona State will be without its top receiver. Kenny Dillingham and Matt Campbell have had their little love fest back and forth, which has been kind of fun.
Get a room.
I didn't know that Dillingham had visited Iowa State and studied Matt Campbell and all the stuff that he talked about. That was certainly interesting. And now we're all really just watching the playoff, right, Chris? I mean, the ratings came out, and everybody's pissed off about the playoff. Nobody's happy right now. I think the Big Ten's the only league that hasn't officially come out and bitched about the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right. Everybody, Big 12's bitching about the ACC. ACC's bitching about the SEC. SEC's bitching about everything. And Big 12,
what is
ACC.
the SEC upset about? I mean, come on.
Well, Lane Kiffin, for instance, he's pissed
God.
because, he has a team sitting there with 3 losses, just like Alabama, and he's going to argue that the strength of schedule is – and this is why Brett Yormark is never going to win an argument about strength of schedule, because all the SEC has to do is say, yeah, well, we play 8 games against one another.
Well, the problem, too, that I'm watching Yormark's press conference yesterday, and he's not wrong when he throws out the non-conference stats and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. The problem is that they're going to blackball the Big 12 from that in the future.
Yes.
And the more he talks about it, like that, they're not going to keep letting these games happen.
No.
Because everybody, this is they're seeing this for the first time, and Jamie Pollard put out a tweet about, we need to assess non-conference scheduling. Well,
yeah, what are you going to do? You're going to not play Iowa? Are you going to be the one? Or is this just a way for the Big 12? Maybe they see. This is what I'm wondering. Does the Big 12 see what's coming down the road, which is the Big 10 and the SEC refusing to allow the Big 12 and ACC to play them? So they're going to get out ahead of it and say, well, we're not going to play you.
I don't know.
It's like the old, you're fired. Oh, yeah? Well, I quit.
My guess would be that Jamie was just pissed and just fired off the tweet. I doubt there was I doubt it was a very calculated thing as far as
I don't know.
goes.
I mean, he went on 𝘙XNO yesterday. Did you hear his talk with? I think he was on The Drive. Lucas Strain, I saw, posted it, and Jamie was he was saying that Iowa State was properly ranked. Iowa State and Arizona State were properly ranked, but at the same time, he was saying that the teams like SMU should not be ranked where they are. Teams like Indiana should not be ranked where they are. Boise State should not be ranked where they are. They should be back with us. Well, here's the one big difference. All those teams have one loss. That's it. Iowa State has two.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no way, there's no world, I don't think, where you can argue that Iowa State should be ranked where Indiana is, or Indiana and Iowa State should be ranked in the same spot.
I will
Indiana
say this about,
is 11-1, and they've killed everybody except for the one game they played that they lost against Ohio State.
I will say this about Indiana. There's no team luckier when it comes to tiebreakers in these giant leagues than Indiana.
Probably.
Imagine if they, because it was one of those like stupid, well, this team beat this team in October things with them and Penn State. Like, imagine them being Penn State right now, having to play in that game, and you're running. If you lose by double digits, you're probably out. Right?
You would be. Yeah,
Yeah,
you would
should be. I would argue.
Now,
like the only two good teams you played, you get,
I think Indiana could compete with Oregon or Penn State. I do. I think they could beat those teams.
So what happened at Ohio State? Or do you just think Ohio State's not as good as those two?
No, I think Ohio State is the most talented team in the Big Ten, and they played their best game against Indiana, and that was a road game. This is a neutral site game where Indiana would probably have a home field advantage. Like, let's just say Indiana's playing Oregon in the Big Ten championship.
Indiana
game.
would travel. The Penn State and
It's
Oregon
in
fans,
Indiana.
Yeah, the Penn State. Well, that's a great point. I didn't think about it like that. My point is, like, the Penn State and Oregon fans were reading about how cheap it is to get into the Big Ten championship games.
Yeah, why the hell would you go to that game if you're an Oregon fan?
Yeah, they know they're in the playoffs,
Yep.
and they've got all this other money that they're going to have to spend to go to, because these stupid quarterfinal games they're on these bowl games where they.
I think that
we don't give a shit
this
about
week.
this sport. Doesn't care about the fans. I don't care what any of these people tell you. These quarterfinal games should not be played at the Fiesta Bowl and the frickin' Rose Bowl and all that crap. They should be on campus.
And I would argue now, I think these conference championship games need to be on campus.
Or just go away with them altogether.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen because of TV dollars.
No,
It's
I
just not
know,
gonna
but
happen.
it's just like the part that drives me crazy is what do they even mean now? To win your conference used to be a big deal.
What it means is you get a bye. That's
Correct.
what it means.
That is fair.
But there is an argument. God, there's so many offshoots to this conversation that I could go on. I'm going to take one of them here.
We could do the whole show on this.
So there is an argument that our Sportsline team is making that the loser of the Big Ten championship game is going to have a considerably easier path to the national championship game than the winner, because the loser is likely to go in that 5 spot and play. Right now, it would be the Big 12 champion, like Arizona State. Like right now, Penn State is set up to play Arizona State, where they would be a more than 2 touchdown favorite. Then they would play Boise State on a neutral field. Whereas you win the Big Ten, like Oregon, they're in that spot right now. Who do you get a bye, sure. But then you've got to play, instead of playing Boise State, you're playing Ohio State or Tennessee. So there are arguments all over the place against the conference championship. And I would say that this is the one bad week that the new playoff has generated. I think it's made the regular season even better, but I think it's making this conference championship Friday and Saturday a lot less meaningful, because for the most part, the games only mean whether or not you get a bye.
Yeah,
we're locked in here.
The Big 12 and the Mountain West, it's great. It's kind of like a play-in game.
It's a play-in game. It's part of the playoff.
That's
like
what
you
we
win
wanted.
this game, you go to the next round, the first round, and so on and so forth. But for Penn State and Oregon, like I bet you there's some Penn State fans that were disappointed that they had to play in the Big Ten championship game, because they're likely going to be in the same spot they would have been had Ohio State taken care of business, but they would have gotten an extra week to prepare, an extra week to rest at the end of the season, a quote-unquote bye, so to speak, in not having to play the conference championship game, like a Tennessee, for instance, like in Indiana. And it's too bad.
Well, let's get to Iowa State, Arizona State here. So the top receiver for Arizona State is out. What's fascinating here is he has twice as many catches as any other player on Arizona State's roster. And that would be a tight end. He has almost 3 times, I think he has over 3 times more catches than the next wide receiver on Arizona State. So this game changes. They're not just going to not play wide receivers. They're going to put somebody else in there. It changes the scout on this game with Cam Skattebo. What do you think? Give me your overall projections on this game, Hassel. Then I'll play a little devil's advocate with you or whatever I need to do.
Well, I woke up today feeling differently about this game than when I sent my pick in to Randy Peterson yesterday.
That's what I'm going off of because I think we disagree on it. So I want to pick your brain.
In those picks, I have Arizona State beating Iowa State because of Cam Skattebo and, more importantly, the consistency that Arizona State has shown over the last 5-6 weeks of this season. They have been far more consistent than Iowa State. But I woke up this morning, I've been thinking more about it, thinking about how Kenny Dillingham has really modeled his program after Iowa State. Who do we think is going to do that better? Kenny Dillingham in his second season or Matt Campbell, who's been there for almost a decade? Who do we think is going to perform better in the Big 12 championship game? A guy who's never been there or Matt Campbell, who was in this position in 2020? He has the history of playing in this game. It's making me rethink things a little bit because Iowa State 2020, kind of an upstart in that position. They were close, not quite close enough. Is that kind of like Arizona State right now? The Iowa State program on the rise. They get to the title game, but they just don't have quite enough. Iowa State has guys that have been through this ringer. Iowa State has played, they faced adversity. Those 2 losses, their backs were against the wall.
And they've had the injuries all year, too.
Yep.
So they've been kind of up against it as far as
Arizona State just kind of rode this magic wave the last month and a half of the season. And man, they're blowing teams out. They didn't really have to face a lot of in-game adversity either, like Iowa State had to face several times throughout the late season and against Utah when you've got to win it to stay in this thing. I don't know. I'm starting to rethink it. And then I hear Jeff Woody's commentary over on Cyclone Fanatic pointing out, and I had forgotten about this, that a month and a half ago, Kenny Dillingham's on the podium, and he's like, we're holding kicker tryouts. There is a major special teams advantage for Iowa State in this game.
Wow. I forgot all about that.
I did too. I had totally forgotten. But Woody says that Iowa State's special teams are far superior to Arizona State. And in a game like this, I mean, winning in the margins, the spread is what? 3, 2.5? It's going to come down to the margins and special teams and teams that have been there in this pressure situation, guys that have been there. Rocco Becht, been through the ringer. And even Taylor Mauser, first-year play caller, but he's been through the ringer. The son of a bitch called a halfback pass in an extreme pressure situation when they needed to score. I feel like Iowa State has more boxes checked than Arizona State. And that I just made that pick based on Cam Skattebo.
Yeah. Skattebo's interesting. I'm going to probably put him on my Heisman ballot for what it's worth. I think he's that good. Like, as far as like you look at like the term outstanding, right? Like what he has done, some of his individual plays, he's incredible. The one thing that kind of stands out to me here now with this injury that I wouldn't have factored this in prior to it is Iowa State's defensive coordinator Jon Heacock generally does a really good job of scheming one-dimensional teams. And I just wonder, they don't really have a proven pass catcher now. And this Leavitt, this quarterback can run, but he's not a dual threat quarterback. There's a difference between like what he does and like what Jaden Daniels does over at Kansas. He can run, but that's not his game. He'll probably outrun Rocco Becht, I would think. So, but he's not a guy that you stay up at night worried about him beating you with your legs. And it makes me feel better about Iowa State as far as stopping Skattebo goes. Now, I do think that he'll have a run or two that's like what Caleb Johnson did to Nebraska, something like that. Like he's going to do something outstanding in this football game. But I'm leaning towards liking Iowa State because of I do think they're going to be semi one-dimensional. Let me throw this out there as well. Iowa State's offense hasn't played in good playing conditions for a month and a half, almost 2 months. I would say the Kansas City game against Kansas was the last time that they've been on, non-wet grass. It's not a night game. I almost wonder, all the pros are going under on this one, and I'll tell you why. Because both of these teams thrive off time of possession. They have really long drives. They shorten games. Both of them are top 15 when it comes to possessing the football. Feels like there might be more points scored in this game to me, and I just have a hunch. Does this feel like that to you? Like this Iowa State offense could have a bit of an outburst here, just based on the playing conditions alone?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that either. But yeah, these are going to be the best conditions they've played in all season.
They really haven't played all these night games on grass in the fall. Like we mentioned, they're slipping all over the place. The dew.
The
Utah
total is what,
great.
49.5?
And it was like 53.5. So it got bet way down. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud. I wanted to bounce that off of you because I could see it too. It's like Arizona State's going to have a couple of long plays, I would think. We saw Kansas State did it. Everybody does that against Iowa State, where it's like, oh, you just rip one. And you're going against one of the most dangerous players in the entire sport in Cam Skattebo. I'm leaning maybe this thing goes over the total just a little bit.
And another reason that I'm rethinking my pick is that all of the power ratings, the metrics, they're all pointing to Iowa State. When you look at the matchup generator at ESPN, 55% of the time Iowa State wins this game. When you look at our sports line simulations, 55% of the time Iowa State wins this game. I'm not quite sure why the betting markets haven't followed that, especially with the injury to by far Arizona State's best wide receiver and really only great wide receiver. Why do you think the market shifted? Because Iowa State opened as a 1-point favorite.
Yeah.
Why did it shift so quickly?
Part of me, I mean, Arizona State's been the hot team, right?
They've been hotter, yes.
Like
they've been more consistent, yes. They've got Cam Skattebo, yes.
They've been the most consistent team in the league for 5 or 6 weeks now. So I don't know, and that would make me nervous. I'd love to see when it comes in as far as the splits in this game. You know what? I can look it up right now. Let's look at the public betting on this football game, and I can tell you if that's accurate or not. Well, right now, 64% of the money is on Iowa State, so that's a good sign. 34% of the bets, 64% of the money. You know what? I think it was a bad line. I thought it was a bad line when it came out. I thought...
Why? Why is it a bet when the metrics all point to Iowa State?
Because
Why is the line bad?
Because it's a bad line because you're trying to go off of what you think perception is too. And I think the overall perception on Saturday night when that line came out at 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, most people would have bet Arizona State. Am I wrong?
I'm just wondering why. Same record.
And when Tyson, they announced the Tyson injury, it didn't change the line.
Didn't change.
Yeah, it usually doesn't really unless it's a quarterback. In
Same
college, a little
record,
bit.
team picked last. I get that maybe they're more, I don't know, it feels like they're more of a Cinderella story.
This feels like a toss-up game, right? I mean, everything we're talking about right here, it's like it just goes back into, I mean, it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up football game with similar teams. They have similar philosophies. They've played similar resumes. Similar quality of wins, and you're putting them on a neutral field. It's a toss-up game.
Arizona State's 2 losses at Texas Tech, 30-22, and at Cincinnati, 24-14. That was their last loss, and that was the game where Dillingham went post-game and said, we're going to have kicker tryouts and all that stuff. And at that point, they were still one of the biggest stories in college football because they were picked last. They were 5-2 and 2-2 in conference. And then what do? They reel off a win the rest of the season.
And they've gotten healthier.
Yeah, they didn't have Levitt for that game against Cincinnati.
Yeah, it was Sims.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's a
They've
good
gotten
point
healthier too. Iowa State's gotten healthier. Like, I can't wait. I think is it the most interesting conference championship game? Just when you factor in it's a win in.
I think on the surface you say that and people are like, what? But then you explain, this is the only game, only power conference game where it's win and in, lose, and you're done. The only other game you can say that about is the Mountain West Conference Championship game, whether Boise State wins or UNLV wins. The winner is in, the loser is out. But this is a power conference game.
Correct.
And so, yes, and that's why Josh Pate's going to it. Like these other games, they're bigger brands. They're more enticing matchups. They would be by far the better matchup in the college football playoff, the more interesting
Texas,
matchup.
Georgia would be. Right?
But given the circumstances, absolutely. This is the most interesting game because of the win and in scenario. As much as it sucks for the Big 12 that they're only getting one team in, that makes this conference championship game more interesting.
Saw another stat when I'm talking about my meaningless conferences now, how they don't really mean anything. That's why I'm so annoyed with all these like Kiffin's comments, and I don't know. Maybe the SEC feels like it's the only conference that's kind of like the same. Of course, they've expanded, but like those teams made sense for them. They didn't just whore themselves out the way that the Big Ten did with like Rutgers and Maryland and and now like the Utah being in the Big 12, like West Virginia, like none of it made any sense, but you just had it. Like freaking SMU and California are in the ACC. There's a chance that all 4 power conferences conference championship game winners. So the winner of these conferences will be new teams to the league.
So that's
year.
where I've been putting this on the rundown for weeks, and you never get to it. You have been so wrong about that because all you've said
I certainly have been. Yeah,
is you look at these teams that go to new conferences. It takes a long time to win, and we have the
this
4
year I've been
favorites
dead wrong.
this week. Or
what?
The 4 favorites are all brand new teams to their conferences.
Let me defend my point. Because we have to evolve, right? Like you get more information and you have to evolve your opinion on it. And my opinion on it, I think, is that it used to be that way. But Chris, like what we're learning is that the game has changed so much with the portal. You don't really recruit regionally anymore, right? Like it used to be like, hey, Nebraska's going to go from the Big 12 to the Big 10. They're the best example. And at that time, the Big 12 was very much a finesse league. It was very much air raid dominated. You had 𝗙liche, you had Gundy, you had Briles, right? Very Texas-centric. And all of a sudden, Nebraska's going up to play in a northern league where they didn't have the toughness and that, it would have been the same thing if Michigan probably at that time would have tried to go down to play in the Texas League. They would have had a hard time they wouldn't have had the athletes, right? Like, and I think you're right. I have been wrong. And I've been thinking about this a lot. I just think that it's such a national game now The regional recruiting isn't what it once was. Yesterday was National Signing Day. Nobody paid attention to it. Nobody cares.
Well, there's this other fact as well. It's now the Blue Bloods are changing conferences.
Yes,
it's
point.
not just an SMU might be an outlier, but it's not just the SMUs.
In my defense of the
Arizona
State
States.
thing, I don't think it like there's not much difference between Arizona State and Kansas State and Colorado. Like the Big 12, I think the Big 12 is screwed in this playoff era. And it's because it's the only league where all the teams are just similar. They're going to have more parity. They're going to beat each other up every year.
So you're not going to have a 12-0 team that
Correct.
loses in the conference championship game and still gets in.
Not very often. Now, I won't say never. Like, it could happen, but I don't think it's going to happen like, I would love to know point spreads in conference games. I would guess the Big 12 has had more single-digit point spreads than any other league. I would guess.
While many have been bitching about how the Big 12 isn't getting two teams in and Iowa State and Arizona State not being ranked high enough, I actually went the other way. I think that they're ranked higher than I thought they would be. If you were to tell me 2 2-loss teams are meeting for the Big 12 championship game, I wouldn't think that they'd be ranked, close to top 15. I thought that this is about where they'd be if they had one loss going in. So this tells me maybe there would have been a chance for a one-loss Big 12 team getting in. Like, where would Iowa State be right now had they not lost that game to Texas Tech?
I don't think they would get in, do you?
I don't think that. I think that right now they would be in the position to get in. They would be top 10.
Yeah.
But if you lose the Big 12 championship game, you'd fall out.
They are looking for reasons to put Alabama and
yeah. And look, just look at Indiana. They only have one loss in the Big Ten, and I know they lucked out on their schedule, but it's still the Big Ten, which is looked at way differently than the Big 12 and the ACC, and they're still looking for ways to get Indiana out. I wanted to go back to a question somebody had about the Arizona State kicking situation that we mentioned earlier. Jeff Woody brought it up, how Kenny Dillingham was holding kicker tryouts after that Cincinnati game, and someone asked, well, what has the kicking situation been like since then? Did they end up benching the kid? They did. So that kid has not attempted a field goal the rest of the way, but get this, the guy who is their place kicker, Parker Lewis, has only made one field goal since that game. He's 1 for 3. So since then, they have still been bad. Now, they've just been scoring touchdowns, so it hasn't mattered. But if Iowa State can bend and not break and put that on the field goal kicking unit, I think that could be a key to this game.
That's good. I hadn't thought about it. Thanks to you and Jeff for bringing that aspect up. Real quick, Dan McCarney is coming on. We're doing a in-depth preview of this game.
Oh, nice.
On Cyclone Fanatic. I got old Danny Mack coming on today.
Great. Can you explain to me this whole wind thing with him?
It's just a long-going joke that Bloom and I have had for 15 years.
Is it just because he talks a lot?
Yeah, because he's windy. So every time it's like a really windy day in Iowa, Bloom makes the joke about McCarney. That's all it is.
By the way, if you like those, the Woody take, Woody and I cooked up some
these are good.
Some film breakdown on Cyclone Fanatic that'll be out today.
It's really good stuff. You guys
on the Cyclone Fanatic X?
Yeah, it'll be on social media and YouTube.
Okay, good.
Keep an eye. Woody's really good at that, and Van Winks is the best out of there you can find. So, all right. So let's lay it down real quick. The best scenario for Iowa State, and then let's do our predictions. Boise loss or a Clemson win and a win, right? You're better at this than me. Like, what should Iowa State fans should definitely be rooting for UNLV.
Yes.
On Friday night.
Here's the path to getting a bye. UNLV beats Boise. That's the simple one. And UNLV is only a 3.5 point
Shockingly,
dog at
I thought
Boise.
they'd be a 10-point favorite in that game.
So
I
if
thought Boise would be.
if UNLV can go in there and win that would boom, instant guarantee. Big 12 champion is going to get a bye because that happens tomorrow. That's a Friday night game. If that doesn't happen, there's still slim hope. I think it's really slim that if Clemson beats SMU, that the Big 12 potentially could be ahead of Clemson. But when the rankings came out, Clemson is right there. I feel like, Clemson, they're one spot behind Iowa State. And you would have Iowa State beating number 15 Arizona State. You would have Clemson beating number 8 SMU. I think Clemson might jump the Big 12 champion if they get that win. So I think the only way that you really guarantee it is in the Mountain West with UNLV beating Boise. But again, still an outside shot that if Clemson wins and doesn't look great in doing so, that Iowa State could still fend them off. I don't think it's – I think that's why they put Clemson right behind Iowa State in the rankings so that they can say, well, Clemson beat a higher-ranked team, and that's why we're jumping the Big 12 champ.
I wonder, too, if style points will come into play at all.
I think that they could.
Like, what if Iowa State or what if Arizona State or Iowa State win by 15? Like, we all think it's going to be a close game. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if Iowa State wins by 30 and Clemson, wins on a last-second field goal, maybe that's enough to keep Iowa State ahead.
Well, then we heard the committee chair this week saying that, an SMU loss could move them out.
Mm-hmm.
And Alabama.
And that pissed everybody off because, if SMU
is Alabama could be in regardless, at this point, which is unbelievable.
What do you
look at?
What's your take on Alabama, Miami? Do you have a take there?
I think it's all of them. I think it's Alabama, Miami, South Carolina, Ole Miss.
I just think Miami. This is just eye test because I watched those games where they had those crazy reviews. Mm-hmm. Early in the year, and I picked against them last week in my locks, and I won. I think Miami is not very good, but that's I don't know.
Yeah, they were always playing with fire every game.
Yeah, feels like every game they were just right there. South Carolina, and I'm very biased towards them.
I think South Carolina is the best of those teams.
I do too. I completely agree, but they lost. They lost the game.
You can't get past the fact that they lost to Alabama and Ole Miss.
Should have in that LSU game.
But
should have won that game too.
Here's why I don't think Alabama should be in considection.
They got killed by a bad Oklahoma team.
Yeah, so this was unbelievable. We were doing the show yesterday. I was with Danny Cannell and I think it might have been Chip Patterson, and they threw up our CBS Sports profile resume is the word I'm looking for. Resume for Alabama. And it said, it listed their strength of record and all that shit. And at the bottom, it listed key losses, or bad loss. And it said at Vandy. And I was like, what? Hang on a second. Their worst loss by far was 24-3 at Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
That's worse than the Vanderbilt loss, and I don't think it's close.
No, not close.
Vanderbilt had a better record in conference than Oklahoma. Vanderbilt performed much better against other competition, other top competition in that conference. And that was a close game. It was a 5-point win. They got their ass handed to them by Oklahoma. 24-3. Alabama didn't even score in the second, third, or fourth quarter. That game was over in the midway through the third quarter. How is that not talked about? Sure, your big wins should count for a lot. Your record should count for a lot. Your bad losses should count for a lot. But the way you lose games too, 24-3. Against Oklahoma?
Some of the media, it's just been preposterous. And the thing is too, people want to go, ESPN, they're in bed with the SEC, and I toot that horn all the time. I'm guessing that a lot of time it's just some guy making $50,000 a year running graphics who just throws that up there. In a lot of these scenarios. During the game, these guys who were just directing and producing these games. I don't know. We know people in that. I'm so jaded towards the whole thing. I think this is what happens too. This is why you need to support your local media when everybody gets laid off across the country. There's one person doing the job of like what 5 people used to do. It's impossible.
Well, can I point out one thing before Van Winks is going to play some Your Mark sound? ESPN, the whole season, they're doing all of the SEC games. They don't have any Big Ten games. So no one is working on any Big Ten stuff. They don't have the Big Ten data points. They don't have any of that built. So when somebody plays, they've got all this stuff from previous games, all from the SEC, and nothing to support anything from Big Ten or other conferences.
And then you also throw in the fact that you have very prominent personalities just shitting all over the other conferences, like Desmond Howard.
Oh, God.
You know, like the perception is so bad.
Let's, Van Winks, jump in with the Your Mark sound from yesterday.
I mean, he's been on his soapbox. He was in Ames on Saturday talking about a similar thing. But
Friend
he's
of the program.
Yeah. He's just adamant that the Big 12 should be in. The winner on Saturday that should be in playoff.
Should get a bye.
Should get a bye. Thank you.
10 games against the Big 12, SEC, and Big 10. Winning both P4 non-conference games against the SEC and the Big 10, and winning 7 of 9 P4 conference games. Boise played 1 game against the Big 10 and lost. And that was their only P4 opponent. The committee clearly focuses on the wins and loss column. Going by that principle, no 3-loss team from a Power 4 conference should get a bye over a 2-loss champion from the Big 12. I'm going to say that again. No 3-loss team from a Power 4 conference should get a bye over a 2-loss champion.
What 3-loss team could get a bye? What's he talking about?
I don't know.
There's no 3-loss team that can get a bye.
I don't know. That was my first thought when I heard the thing too.
Alabama's the only 3-loss team that might get in, and they can't get a bye. You have to win your conference championship game.
The worst case scenario in the Big Ten is a 2-loss Penn State. It would be a 2-loss SEC. Wait, is he talking about Georgia? If Georgia would win?
Yeah, but they only have 2 losses. Georgia's
right.
10-2.
Sorry, yeah.
So I don't know what the hell he was talking about there.
Regardless, here's what I hate about this. Screw
He's
everything
talking about Clemson?
else. Screw the seeding.
Clemson? I guess,
9-3.
because Clemson could.
Good.
Okay,
Yep, there you
so
go,
that's where it is. Clemson, it's the scenario we talked about. Clemson could beat SMU in the conference championship game, and because of their strength of win over SMU, jump Iowa State or Arizona State. Got it. Thank you.
This is what I hate. It's like framing Big 12 and ACC fans against each other and against Boise. Guys, you're fighting with the wrong people here. It's the other dudes that are trying to shank you in the back room. Like, this is exactly what Sankey wants. The Big Ten and the SEC have already come out and said, we're going to do everything we can to keep these guys down.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I mean, it's just, I don't want to root against Boise, right? Like, but I have to, and it's being framed to me like that. Like, to me, like, I want as many of these little guys to have an opportunity at this as possible. I would love, how cool would it be to see Georgia have to go play at frickin' Boise State in the first round? It'd be unbelievable theater. It's snowing the blue turf.
I do think if we're going to stay in this format, we should change it to where if you do win your power conference, at worst you host a playoff game. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, maybe Boise, Mountain West team is unbeaten or has one close loss to the top team in the country, and they get that bye over you, but you won your power conference, you get a home playoff game.
As far as I'm concerned, we could never see a Fiesta Bowl, Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl ever again. I don't care. It was a great era. We had a lot of great memories. It's not the same thing. enough.
They're trying to make those games the playoff now. The quarterfinals.
It's not the Rose Bowl.
semifinals.
It's the college football playoff.
Right. And those games should be played on campus.
Why are we whoring ourselves out to these bull people? Put them on campus. And
that's a question I've been trying to answer for a long time.
It's too cold. The Bears play in Soldier Field in January. What about Lambeau? Do you think those people in Buffalo on Sunday night, it's snowing? It's football.
No, I think it makes it great.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. It offers teams like the Minnesota Vikings did this back in the day, and they have never won anything since. No. They built their team around their atmosphere. Their climate. They do it in baseball all the time. You build your team around your ballpark. That's what it should be in football. It gets cold. Well, we've got a team that can play in the cold. We can win games in the cold. We can run all over your ass.
And it makes getting home field more important. Just like you don't want to go play in Lambeau. If you're the Miami Dolphins, you don't want to go up and play in Buffalo.
Yeah. Miami wilts in the cold.
Yes. God. Oh, it just makes me so mad. I spend way too much of my time thinking about the bull people. I just sit around at night thinking about these people. They live in my head like Iowa State does your dad.
It was funny. I said, my dad only cares about 3 things: Iowa State, Trump, and what was the other thing that I tweeted it out last week. It was Iowa State, Trump, and something else.
I remember the tweet. I forget what the third one was.
Some guy took it as that he was a big Trumpster and called my dad out for being a MAGA.
Let me guess Don didn't take well with that.
Oh, my God. Yeah, not happy.
Can I just address two of these comments that are just dead
Mr.
wrong
Williams.
in the comments?
Oh, Mr. Williams was the third thing. Mr. Williams, yeah.
Big Papa says it's because the bull people have the money. That is such a farce. The only reason they have the money is because the schools and the conferences pay them. You can just keep that money. You think the Bulls have more money than the Big Ten and the SEC? Come on. It's ridiculous. And then, we don't want to give too much of an advantage to the home team in the playoffs. Oh, like the NFL does?
Yeah, right.
Like the fucking NBA does? Like the NHL does? Why is this sport different? Well, we got to have the Peach Bowl kickoff in Georgia every year. It's so stupid. You could do it on your own. Okay, I'm done. It's overtime.
Let's make wait.
Whoa, you're right. Sorry.
Let's make our picks for the Iowa State Arizona State game, and then we'll hit overtime.
I'm going Cyclones 27-24. The wide receiver deal. And don't tell me, you're making too big of a deal out of that. It's bad. No, Matt Campbell and his team don't give a shit what we're saying here on this show. We have nothing to do with the outcome of the game. Schematically, it's a big advantage for Iowa State. And I do believe that this Iowa State offense has some big plays. I mean, those wide receivers getting vertical. Yeah. I'm curious, does Bramer have a shot to play? I don't know. And I just like the fact that Haycock doesn't have a big play threat on the outside to worry about.
Haycock's going to whip out that anaconda.
Well, they're going to go one-on-one on the corners, dude. They can go one-on-one in the corners. They can load the box. I'm picking Iowa State to win the game 27-24.
Jared has
Iowa
Iowa
State.
State
in Happy Valley.
31-17. Jeremy has, hate to say it, Arizona State winning 31-23.
Right. I don't think any pick is crazy. This is going to be a good football game.
I'm changing my pick.
Whoa!
I have woken up today a new me. And I know this is going to piss off a lot of Iowa State fans because they want me to pick against Iowa State like I have.
No, it doesn't matter.
The last couple games, but I've been wrong. And so they want me to keep that thing going. Pick against Iowa State. They're going to prove you wrong again. I convinced myself that Iowa State is in a better spot to win this game. The best receiver is out. Iowa State has an advantage on special teams. Arizona State can't kick a field goal. Iowa State will do a better job of being Iowa State than Arizona State will of being Iowa State, right? They've been doing it longer. Kenny Dillingham is trying to do the exact same thing.
You have experience with this too as an
Matt
Iowa
Campbell's been there.
Yeah.
Arizona State hasn't. I think Arizona State is more like Iowa State was back, 2017, 18, 19, 20.
Steve
Iowa
says
State,
you have been redeemed.
We'll see. Iowa State wins this in a tight game, and field goal kicking is the difference. Arizona State missed field goal is going to be
31.
This is a cyclone weather alert. Ladies and gentlemen, radar has indicated a strong storm approaching
I thought
Jackpot
this was
Stadium.
overtime that you were
Highways in low
playing.
visibility
Oh, this is overtime.
This is
Oh,
overtime,
this is
you idiots.
overtime.
area.
This is your warning.
Jesus. Van Winks, if it wasn't bad enough that we've talked for an hour about Iowa State, now you do that to go into overtime. We
You
have
guys
to
both
try to
picked Iowa
keep this fair and balanced.
Well, you guys should play in a Big Ten championship again.
Can we talk more about the Dix
Hey,
beater?
I have
Can we?
done.
Can we? Can we? Can we?
The what?
The Dix beater?
Dick's beater?
The Josh Dix buzzer beater. The Dix beater.
Oh. Sorry, I was thinking football. What the hell? He bailed out his coach. I know that. Wild Rose Casino brings us overtime. They are in Clinton, Emmitsburg, Jefferson. Great little holiday party. You should take your. Honestly, the Jefferson Sportsbook is one of the most best secrets in the state of Iowa. The DraftKings Sportsbook in Wild Rose Casino in Jefferson. I absolutely freaking love that place. They have amazing food. Y'all should go and check it out here during the holiday season.
You want to learn how to get free play?
Yeah, I would love to.
I'm Steve Nauman, General Manager of the Wild Rose Casino and Hotel Clinton. And if I'm on the floor, there's a good chance I've got free play in my pocket.
Thank you.
And if you see me, just say, "Hey, Steve, where's my free play?"
Hey, Steve, where's my free play? Yeah!
Just one more way we take care of our guests.
At Wild Rose Clinton.
I want some free yeah! Yeah.
Got that in my
He
pocket.
sounds like 𝗀cie𝗏𝗶𝗏.
Yeah, how about them storm chasers? Yeah.
What was Fran McCaffrey doing calling that timeout with under
That
a
wasn't
second
Fran McCaffrey. That was Peyton Sanford
Oh, that makes
across
way more
the floor.
sense. Okay.
He
That's
was
good to
trying
know.
to, and I was second guessing that too. He was trying
Oh
to
my
call a
God.
timeout because the play was not working. He started signaling that timeout with like 1.7, 1.8 left, but they didn't. The official didn't see him until there was like a half second left.
Wow.
So calls timeout. Originally there was 0.3 on the clock. They go back, they give him 0.8, which made the difference. Like if it was only 0.5, I don't think he gets that off, but 0.8. They draw that play up. I guess Dix was like the third option on that play.
Well, it was a hell of a shot.
Yeah, that was such an important shot because Iowa loses that game, and that could be the thing that keeps them out of the tournament. Like Northwestern is so low in the net rankings that Iowa actually dropped 5 spots with that win.
Well, big time shot, and it just changed the entire vibe. Iowa sucks in these December Big Ten games traditionally,
Yeah.
and it just
Yeah,
makes
it's like automatic 0-2 start every year, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Big
needed
time
that
play.
because now they got to go to Michigan, and Michigan just won at number 11 Wisconsin.
Is that Saturday or Sunday or whatever? I don't even know.
I think it's this
So
weekend.
much in football
I
mode
know
right
it's
now.
before. Yeah, it's got to be because it's before the.
And then you get Cyhawk next week.
I mean, look, it might be on Saturday afternoon. I thought I wrote it down in my to-do notes. Saturday, yeah, it's 1:00 Iowa at Michigan, 1:00 Central Time. So I'll put
Second
that.
half of the
I'll put the Iowa basketball game on my big TV and the Iowa State Big 12 championship game on my tiny TV.
We all know that's not true. Come on.
Where are we going to go now? Are we going to
I
talk?
want to do real quick Iowa portal football.
Yeah,
And
that's
then-
what I wanted to go there too.
And then we'll do our locks of the week and our top games of the weekend with game day.
How about
and
Cade McNamara looking for a 7th season?
I didn't know
don't-
that was a thing.
I
for him.
don't know if like he just announced he's going into the portal, but I don't know that he's been guaranteed another year. Like this would be his 7th year. He started at Michigan, being on the team, not starting games, but he was there in the 2019 season. And I know you've got the COVID year mixed in, and he says he's going to be a grad transfer. Well, I know they're just handing out extra years of eligibility like lollipops to kids, but I don't know if this is guaranteed. And where the hell is he going to go? Like, he's going to have to go down to
Utah State.
Utah State? How about Utah Tech? I don't know that he's a Mountain West quarterback. Do you think he's a Mountain West quarterback with that arm?
Anybody
No.
checked on Deacon this year?
Yeah, how's he doing at that Utah?
I haven't checked since early on in the season. I mean, they were one of the worst teams in the country in FCS. No one's going to pay him anything. I think he's looking for an extra year of pay.
Can't blame him.
But
He's not going to be a pro.
Sure, you can't blame the guy. I mean, yeah, right. I don't know where he's going to go. What do you got there?
And he's
Deacon
a
Hill's numbers?
major injury risk, too.
Oh boy.
Deacon Hill's numbers
Utah
at Utah
Tech
Tech.
was
Wow, he
1-11.
really didn't play at all
They
the
were 1-11
last couple
this year.
months. They were 1-11, and he goes 36 of 75, 412 yards, a completion percentage of 48. How about touchdowns and interceptions? Do you have that, Van Winks? What was his?
Yeah, he had 2 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Hey,
He hasn't
doubled
played
up.
since September.
2-1 touchdown
Yeah, but
to
he
interception
doubled it
ratio.
up. That's great. Good for Deke. I want to talk about this Miller Moss story.
Yeah.
Listen, whatever. If he's getting attention from Michigan and Auburn and Louisville, then that's a good group to be in, right? If you're Iowa with the quarterback. I would love to see Iowa go the Indiana route and just find a winning quarterback from a MAC school. Because the thing is, like, no matter what Iowa's offense is going to turn into, I don't need Dylan Gabriel at Iowa, right? Like, it'd be nice, but you're not going to get him. And like, I want a guy from a winning program who's played in that area of the country who can move up a level, right? And then you don't have to pay him.
You're laying out exactly what Indiana did.
Yeah,
Rourke.
and the thing is, and I've had coaches tell me this too, when you do it that way, these guys, they view being able to be on a charter flight instead of a bus and having better dorms or having better food is a raise.
You're looking at, it's kind of the same situation with the big guys that Iowa State brought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys that
That's
just
their
really
playbook.
appreciate the atmosphere and another thing, aren't as expensive. Like to
I
try to
thought Cade-
get a former 4 or 5 star, that's going to be more expensive than trying to get a guy out of the group of 5 to come up and sling.
And I just am a huge believer, this isn't always right, but when you go from Michigan to Iowa, you kind of just think you're better than Iowa.
Yeah. And that's
When you
kind of
go-
the attitude that Cade put off.
That's how I always viewed it, but that's how I always viewed it. And I don't know about this Miller Moss. I don't know anything about him. Maybe he'll come to Iowa and be a great. I don't think this is if I'm Iowa and I have certain amount of money that I can spend on my roster, do you really need to spend half of it on quarterback or whatever that money would be? I would rather have a guy who's just he's just a freaking winner who really wants to be there. They're not doing it for a paycheck. Just like the Indiana kid. They get that kid from Ohio, the guy that beat Iowa State last year at Ohio. That dude's a fucking winner, man.
I would
That
be
guy
more
just wins
excited
games.
about a Caden Salter from
The whole
Liberty
Indiana roster
than
is
I
like
would
that.
be for, Miller Moss or Connor Wigman.
And I also don't like the Miller Moss because you go from having the best athletes around you
right
on the field at USC, the best offensive mind in Lincoln Riley, and now you're going to go down to Iowa's wide receivers and whatever Tim Lester is going to be. I'm not going to judge him yet. Feels like it's going in a good direction, but it ain't going to be Lincoln Riley. I can promise you that.
Well, and I asked you and some others yesterday, like, can you think of many instances where a top 10 level recruit went somewhere, got benched, transferred somewhere else that wasn't like a blue blood. You're not transferring to Oregon, and had a lot of success. The only one that came to mind for me was Kyle McCord, who
Uiagalelei played pretty well at Oregon State, but then he goes to Florida State and was terrible.
Yeah, he's not a good example. I mean, he's an example of exactly what you don't want. Overpaying for a guy that had a bunch of stars in his recruiting and never really became anything. Is because you'll see transfers work out, but it's like a Caleb Williams leaving on his own to go from Oklahoma to USC. It's a Dylan Gabriel leaving on his own to go from Oklahoma to Oregon, like big-time blue blood programs, and guys that still could have kept their job had they stayed in their school. But these high-level guys who just didn't work out, like Miller Moss, like Wegman at A&M, do you really trust that they're going to have success going down to a school like Iowa that doesn't have that, that blue blood, and especially anything offensively from a quarterback position to lean on? I do trust Tim Lester, and I think Tim Lester is going to be the guy leading this charge. And I had a little birdie whisper in my ear yesterday at CBS Sports HQ that Iowa fans are going to be excited about who they get. Now, this birdie wouldn't tell me who it was, but this birdie said, I think you guys are going to be pretty excited.
I would go if we all agree that we like where this Lester thing is headed, right? Like that we all kind of agree there. I would just like to see them find a great fit for that. Somebody who has played a lot of football and won. I don't care what level. Like if it was in the MAC, if it was whatever. Played a lot of football and won. I don't necessarily need a retread who didn't work out somewhere else and now is dropping down. To me, like that fit is more important here than stars.
No question. That's why I said I would rather have a Caden Salter who was like a 3-star and won a bunch at Liberty. They went 13-0 last season and went to a New Year's Six bowl game.
God, I'm worried. I'm not worried. I'm thinking about who this birdie might be. Trying to think of the roster over there.
Roster over where?
Well, so is it Pate? Is it Pate?
No, it wasn't Pate. But so yesterday it was National Signing Day, so we had every college football person was there. And the guys who were in the weeds, just in the fucking weeds all year long. I mean, all they care about is like the recruiting rankings and all this stuff. And he just said, I think you guys are going to be happy.
All right. Anything else on Iowa real quick? And then we're going to get to our sponsored segments here.
Is there any, we'll find out the bowl destination Sunday. Is there anything, opponent, destination?
I want South Carolina.
Just because your mom loves Cox?
Mm-hmm. I think it'd be a really good time. We could do it. I could wear all my Gamecock stuff.
Yeah, but do you really think that?
And I think South Carolina would kill them.
You think? But they'll have a bunch of opt-outs.
Probably.
Caleb Johnson isn't playing for Iowa.
I was just being a dick. No, there's really nothing here that would excite me.
Me either.
You know what?
Caleb Johnson would really be the only thing that would excite me, because I think at this point we now realize that, like Brennan Sullivan and Jackson Stratton, those guys cannot be your only options at quarterback going into next season. So I don't think even what we see from those guys, and it sounds like it could be Sullivan, like that's going to give us any indication for next season.
It's just going to be another.
They're going to go out and they're going to get a guy that's going to come in as a starter.
And this is a compliment to Iowa too. You guys have played in all these bowl games so much. Like it's a compliment. Like they're just always there. They're always playing in the Capital One Bowl or the Outback Bowl, whatever the hell.
It's not a real game.
I know it's not, but my point is you're so bored with them now. Like even just it doesn't mean anything. The one interesting thing, if Iowa State loses, I've heard that the Alamo is seriously in play. They could get matched up with Colorado, which would be fun.
That would be the most interesting bowl game out there because Dion has already said that Shedeur and Travis Hunter are going to play in the bowl game.
I just saw Adam Ring's tweet. I hadn't even seen that when I said this, but yeah, that's what I'm hearing is because those Arizona State, the Alamo is a Pac-12 bowl versus the Big 12. Well, now they can take former Pac-12 teams and put them in.
That's the only thing that could interest me about a bowl game this year is Colorado.
With
the guys that could be the top 2 picks in the draft.
I would guess I would put like even money if Iowa State loses on Saturday. They would play Colorado in the Alamo Bowl.
Randy Peterson says Iowa State Colorado is a given if Iowa State loses.
I don't know if it was a given or not, but Randy's more connected than I am, so I'll take his word for it. I was just doing math, but there you go.
Randy,
they'll go.
Is Randy going to go in and change his article now that I changed my pick?
I'll do that for you.
Did I just give him homework up there at the lake that he says is already frozen over?
I don't think Randy even knows how to go in and make an edit. I don't think I've ever taught him that. Like he could do it, but I always put them.
Oh yeah, let's look at the picks. By the way, we haven't done that yet. The picks from everybody but Fails because he
Fails too good for the picks.
Randy's got Iowa State winning in overtime.
Wow, Pete.
38.
Hey,
35.
Pete's on the over train with me. I thought it was interesting, even though my pick doesn't even hit the over. But.
Flip my pick. I had Arizona State 28, Iowa State 26. Flip that sucker. 28-26, Iowa State
26
over ASU.
Williams, 2 missed PATs from that kicker at Arizona State.
2 missed PATs. Wouldn't that be something? Well, it'd be 1 missed PAT and then probably 1 missed 2-point conversion.
There you go.
You've got Williams, Iowa State 27-23, winning by 4.
Missed PAT.
Keith Murphy. This is surprising. I thought Keith would pick Arizona State because he's become an Arizona State fan because his son goes there. Keith also has Iowa State winning 31-28. Down says, why not? Iowa State 28, Arizona State 24. This is not looking good, man.
No,
Van Wink says Iowa State winning by 10, 34-24. And Brend has Iowa State winning 31-27. I was going to be the only one on the other side. This doesn't look good.
No. This
doesn't look good. I don't like it.
I'm the only one picking upset out in Boise.
Yeah, so Van Winks has Iowa State getting a bye because he has UNLV beating Boise.
Damn right.
All right. Should we Game Day Men's Health? Let's do our top games of the weekend here on Two Guys.
Get up. It's game day. Chris Williams and Chris Hassel take a look at this week's best games, powered by Game Day Men's Health.
Well, there's not a lot to pick from.
No.
So I'll let you start.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go in chronological order here.
Okay, I'm going to start on Friday. I mean, this is obvious. It's UNLV at Boise, and there's a couple different reasons. And again, this is at Boise. This is not neutral site. This is in Boise. Couple different reasons I love this game. One is obvious, is that if UNLV wins, all of a sudden that the Big 12 game is for a bye the next day. But 2, it's a play-in game. The winner of this game is in the playoff. And I like it. It's on campus. It's cool. And I'll have more on this game in my lock coming up. And then I'm going to go with the ACC championship game for very similar reasons. The biggest being this is really the only way that the playoff could shake up is if Clemson beats SMU. If Clemson beats SMU, then things could get weird with, then who do you pick? Do you pick SMU? Do you pick Alabama? How do you go about separating? And Clemson all of a sudden gets a bye. More than likely. If they jump Iowa State. And I want to see it. Clemson's been there, done that. Like Dabo has won 8 straight ACC championship games. It's in Charlotte. A lot closer for those Clemson fans to travel. And SMU, their first time in this huge spot.
Let's go. I'm here for it. I also had that game just because of the same reasons that you laid out. It's really hard to build up any of these other games like Penn State, Oregon, like whatever.
That's the least interesting game.
I will put the SEC game on there just because I'm so like, if Georgia wins this, it's like they just feel such like a program that if they turn it on, like they could rattle off 4 in a row and win the national championship, right?
What's weird about that game is that Georgia went into Austin and beat Texas. It was a really weird game. Carson Beck threw 3 picks, but they still won by double digits. Yet here they are in basically a home, what's going to be close to a home game in Atlanta as an underdog against Texas.
Yeah, I will be interested in this, but I'm still not sold that Texas is like a real national title contender. Like I think they belong in the conversation, but I don't know if they're good enough to win it. We'll see. I think Georgia will win this game though. I think that everybody, it feels like all the sharps are on Texas here.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I know Georgia has shown that they are more vulnerable than Texas this
season. But they've also like these teams that are just bought and paid for, like they flip switches, and I wonder if they got caught sleeping against Georgia, which would have been a really stupid thing to do, but I wouldn't put it past a bunch of college kids. I don't know. But they haven't looked right. Like, but I also just, I don't know. Texas has not blown me. I think they're a really good team. I don't know if they're a great team.
Can I jump back to the Big Ten championship game just real quick? I have a question for you. I'll throw this at Hassel. So if Penn State upsets Oregon, how do you think they'll seed Penn State? Will they put them at 4? And if Boise State wins, would they move up? You know, like how would they shift that around?
I think Penn State would be either 1.
1? You think so?
Yeah, they'd be either 1 or 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way.
So
Boise
Penn State
jump.
would be 1 if Texas loses.
But it would be
Texas,
the Big 12 champ probably playing at Oregon.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
I don't know what you want. Right now it's looking like
Penn State.
But there's so many factors with the ACC championship game and the Mountain West championship game.
I hope it's Penn State. I think that'd be really cool to go.
But yeah, it looks like if you're
Happy
playing in the
Valley.
first round, it's going to be you're playing at either Oregon, Penn State, or Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. Which either would be really cool experience.
Yeah, the easiest thing would probably be they just flip Penn State and Oregon with that 1 and 5. Drop Penn State.
Who knows what these people
Oregon
are going to do?
5.
Who knows?
But
I have no idea.
who knows?
All right, let's do our Centurion Stone Cold Locks of the Week. Presented by our friends at Centurion Stone of Iowa. I hired them for a stone fireplace a couple years ago. We absolutely love it. They also do commercial work all around the great state of Iowa. A showroom in Nebraska as well, over in Omaha. We've had a couple of listeners that have got stone fireplaces built by my friends at Centurion Stone of Iowa. You should too. I only have 2 for this week. I had a really hard time this week, so I'll let you go first, Chris. You feel like you're a little more confident in some of these games than I am.
So streaky. I think I've either won all my games or lost all my games for 5 straight weeks.
I'm finally starting to win more than I'm losing, which I couldn't say for most of the year.
Williams 17, 24, and 1. I'm 20, 19, and 1. I've got 4 picks. I feel really good about my first one here. Jacksonville State -4.5 at home against Western Kentucky. So Jacksonville State played at Western Kentucky last week. Game didn't mean anything for Jacksonville State. Meant everything for Western Kentucky. The Hilltoppers had to win that game to get in the conference championship game. Jacksonville State was perfect in conference. They had already solidified their spot. Western Kentucky needed a 50-yard field goal at the Horn to win by 2. You wonder if Rich Rod and Jacksonville State were holding something back in that game and have more to show Western Kentucky on their home field in Jacksonville, Alabama, not Florida, Jacksonville, Alabama. And so I'm going to lay the 4.5 points with Jacksonville State in the Conference USA championship game, which I believe is on Friday with Amanda Guerra on the sideline.
Oh, nice. I got a teaser I would tell everybody to play with your locks, but go ahead.
Okay.
I'll let you finish it up here.
I am also going to go to the Mountain West Conference Championship game.
Do the Tulane game real quick because I want to give everybody.
Okay.
Do that one first, and then we'll move on.
Tulane is playing on the road in the American Conference Championship game at Army. I'm going Tulane.
You're going against the troops again?
Yes. Tulane minus 5.5. Now, Tulane lost last week, and that knocked them out of the playoff discussion. But I just have – there's one reason I'm basing this off of, and maybe I'm dumb. Tulane faced the triple option at Navy, won 35-0. So now they go to Army. I think it's going to be similar. Give me Tulane minus the 5.5.
I like the teaser of Jacksonville State and Tulane. All they got to do is win. Even money.
Okay. Maybe that's one of your other locks? I've got two more for you.
I like that teaser. It's an easy teaser right there. And then
is.
all you got to do is have the favorites win.
I don't tease very often. I'm not a teaser guy. I just go straight up. But I do. I like your thinking on that. I'm going UNLV plus 4 at Boise. And it's for the reason that you laid out earlier. Wow, UNLV's only a 4-point dog at Boise? Boise went to UNLV and won by 5 earlier this season, but you dig into it, UNLV was leading in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
They did a pretty good job on Ashton Genty in that game. It was one of his worst games of the season. I think that the line is telling you something here. UNLV plus 4 at Boise. And then I'm going with Georgia plus 2.5 against Texas. You're on board with that too. You think Georgia wins the game outright?
I do.
Georgia won at Texas earlier this season. Georgia was ranked higher than Texas going into the season, had higher expectations than Texas going into the season. This is basically a home game in Atlanta. Georgia's been here, done that. In the SEC, what is this, 4 straight SEC championship games they've been in? Something like that? Give me the 2.5. Shit, I'll put the money line on that thing, too. Sprinkle that son bitch. Those are my 4 locks.
I'm going to the MAC. Did you know this is Ohio's 6th appearance in the MAC championship game? They've never won it.
Yes, that's correct.
Never won it.
Miami won it last year.
And Miami's quarterback is 24. This is his 6th season. It's Blaine Gabbert's younger brother. And they have been a covering machine down the stretch this year. The fact that you can get this basically at a pick'em -2 against I like Miami, Ohio to win this game straight up. All the metrics go in their direction. The only thing that would make me worry is, is there a law of averages thing that Ohio's got to win one of these at some point. I'm going Miami of Ohio, 24-year-old quarterback, winning its 2nd year in a row. The other game, I'm going to the NFL. Stick with what you know, they say. I'm going to take the Vikings -6 against the Falcons and Kirk Cousins' return to Minneapolis. I think the Falcons are really heading in the wrong direction right now. You would know more about them than me. But this Vikings team just keeps winning.
To me, that pick would be more about the Falcons and Kirk Cousins than anything because I watched a lot of that Falcons game last week. Kirk Cousins is throwing Nerf footballs out there.
Well, and my point is that, one, that place is going to be on fire. 2, the whole tampering thing. 3, Cousins, where does he genuinely just struggle in big game atmospheres?
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking the Vikings here. minus
Cousins
6.
to me last week looked like Peyton Manning did his last season. Just zero arm strength, none. Now Peyton
Flores
Manning
is going to go after his ass.
Oh God, I can't imagine. Unless that was just a 1 week thing with Cousins, I wouldn't be surprised if he plays that way again this week. If Cousins plays the way he did last week, Michael Penix is going to be the starter after this game. It's that bad.
Maybe he'll get replaced in the middle of this game. Yeah, I'm taking the.
I've never seen more lollipops from a quarterback than
and
Cousins.
I'm the most pessimistic Vikings fan in the world. So for me to put them on here, I'm feeling pretty good about this one.
Good point.
Well, good show. I'm heading to Dallas. My flight is at 5 a.m. tomorrow.
5 a.m. Oh my God,
dude, there were not many flights.
That's
left.
tough.
It was that or
before you get out. What do you
Atlanta.
think? What do you think that this Iowa State and for that matter Arizona State contingent is going to be like? The stadium, it's an 80,000 seat stadium.
It'll be pretty full, I think. I mean, it's not going to be completely full. It's not going to be like a sellout.
But I would imagine half the fans are not going. Like, there's not going to be 40,000 Iowa State and 40,000 Arizona State. What do you think? 20,000 Iowa State fans?
25,000. I think a lot of people will drive. I know a ton of people who are.
I hope so. I hope nobody's. Like, I want to wait and see where they go play their bowl game. This is it, man.
That.
Get your ass down there.
I think that there's going to be a massive amount of Iowa State fans there. I know a lot of people are just leaving first thing tomorrow morning, and they're just going to cruise down the interstate and just go. The flight situation was brutal. Like, they're good luck getting a flight. If you want to fly to Dallas out of Des Moines, it's almost impossible. And I've kind of just, been reading the Arizona State media this week, and apparently they have like 25,000 alumni in Dallas. So they'll have a decent contingency. But part of Dillingham's problem, and he talked about this a lot in his press conference this week, is getting those people engaged.
Sure.
So they're actually paying attention to Arizona State football.
Why has no one mentioned anything about my Christmas tree? My wife asks me after every show.
It's lovely.
Has anyone said anything about your
Is
Christmas
that a
tree?
duck or a snowman?
This is a Hawkeye snowman. There's all Hawkeye ornaments on the tree. Floyd of Rosedale. Got my, you'll love this, Iowa UCLA Rose Bowl.
Nice.
From the 80s. And nobody said a goddamn thing.
Yeah,
She's like, nobody in the comments has said, like, nice tree?
Throw the Amish bench on there. Give it some color.
Well, the Amish bench is down here. I still have it. Put it on the top like
Make
a star.
Make it be the star, yeah.
It kind of looks like that 5-bar logo from a distance.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've gone way over time here.
All right. Going to be a fun weekend. We'll be back on Monday morning. Murph and Andy live tomorrow, at 1 o'clock.
Cheers to the weekend, brother.
Cheers. Oh, yeah. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm so sorry about that, Mr. Hoffman. I wanted to give a shout-out to my friend Pat Hoffman. They're doing a big showing. Give me a second. Gosh, I feel terrible about this. Oh, baby.
I need a new bottle of Steeple Ridge. Mine's getting low.
Look at Pat. I gave some to Eric Heft on the show this week. So they're having a Des Moines release of the new Steeple Ridge at Wall to Wall in West Des Moines. That is on Friday from 4 to 7.
I'm going.
So you're going to go? Go, yeah, go check it out. All the new Steeple Ridge bourbon at Wall to Wall in West Des Moines on Friday from 4 to 7.
I need a cigarette.
Oh, yeah.
I could use a pull of Steeple Ridge right about now. He's Chris Hassel for my friend Matt Van Winkle. We'll be back on Monday.